milady? Elly heard Florence's voice before she could open her eyes. She tried to move and found her back aching with pain every time she did. The lashes Prince James had given her as punishment had left her with open wounds on her back. Before she fainted, they needed to be packed with cloth. The room came into focus slowly. "My lady, you're awake!" Florence dropped what she was carrying and rushed over to Elly's side. Elly reached behind her back and found, to her surprise, that the wounds were bound. "You packed it?" "Yes, my lady. At first I was very confused about what you meant by packed, but then I remembered you put cloth on your wrist after Lady Nerissa cut you with that knife." Elly smiled faintly. "You remembered?" If it weren't for that, Elly would have definitely bled out. People in the 13th century did not know much about blood wounds, with wounds often left open. It was lucky Elly was actually a nurse and knew how to pack a wound, or, in other words, stuffing cloth in the wound till the blood flow stopped, which was the best way to save a person from bleeding out. But this was not the end, because now the real treatment would begin. Elly couldn't just lie here and wait to heal. She needed to treat the wounds and seal them properly. "Okay, Florence, I'm going to give you a list of herbs to get from the greenhouse." Elly wrote out the herbs she needed. She had spent some time teaching Florence which were which, so they could be better prepared for an event like this one. As soon as Florence rushed out, Elly managed to get out of bed. She turned her back to a mirror to see what the treatment plan needed to be. Florence had packed her wounds well, and thankfully the gashes were shallow. Elly's mind whirled with everything that had happened to bring her to this point. The back-and-forth battle against Nerissa and James. Elly was worried. She was losing her power already. Any more and she wouldn't be able to regain her title as princess. But first, she needed to recover. Florence returned with the herbs, and Elly instructed her. "First, you must take out the cloth and clean up the wounds. Use some of that soap and water together." "What if my lady bleeds again?" "It's been enough time. The bleeding should have stopped by now." Florence nodded, looking impressed. "I'm always so surprised my lady knows about the healing arts." Elly lay down and let Florence clean her back. "Yes, well, I told you, I went to a convent where I was taught by the best." "My lady could help other staff around the castle. That would make them like you. There are many people here with all kinds of ailments. Stewardess Maggie doesn't always call the witch doctor because she thinks they deserve to suffer." How cruel! Nerissa was effectively turning into the head of the house, but if Elly managed to get some staff on her side, she could have some support, and right now she desperately needed more allies. "It's done. I've finished cleaning the wounds," Florence said. "Good. Now make a paste of those round leaves with some water and apply it on my back. This will help the pain and inflammation." Florence got to work. When she was done, it was time to bandage. Elly tied a long piece of cloth around herself until she was sure it was tight. Florence tied the loose ends together, and Elly checked the work. "Not bad at all. It looks professional even." Florence beamed a big smile. "Now what?" "Now I must get some nourishment if I am to get better faster. Protein is best." Florence had no idea what that was. "Protein?" "Meat, and it would be best if it's in a stew with other vegetables. This way the wound will heal faster." Florence nodded. "I will go check the kitchen, milady." Florence dashed off again as Elly realized how hungry she was. She needed to eat well if she was going to get better. Florence returned with nothing but a small dish. "I'm sorry, Your Highness. Stewardess Maggie caught me and told me that she wasn't allowed to send you any food. Prince's orders." Elly clenched her fists. James was hell-bent on killing her, if not from her wounds, then from starvation. Florence uncovered the small dish she carried with her to reveal some small bones with barely any meat on them. "I picked some bones for you, Your Highness." Bones? Elly was frustrated and distraught. These are leftovers from the ceremony? Yes, I hid them away for later, but it's okay. You need them more than I do, Florence said with a smile. Elly needed far more nutrients than just this, but Florence's good gesture touched her. Florence was giving up her own food so Elly could get better. This made her feel stronger. She would need to go on, not just for her own sake, but also for the young girls. Elly decided to utilize what she learned about surviving in the wild with limited resources in her past life. You know the edible herbs I told you about, Florence? Florence nodded. You told me about parsley and dillweed. Yes, bring me some and put them in hot water with the bones. Let it steam for a bit. I can eat that. Florence was a good and loyal lady's maid. Elly would make sure that she was well rewarded when she finally became a queen. When Florence brought the soup back, she watched hungrily as Elly took the bowl from her. Give me another bowl. Florence handed her a second bowl. Elly poured half the soup into that and handed it back to Florence. Florence shook her head. No, my lady, please, you must regain your strength. Florence, it's important that you eat as well. Come on, I insist. Florence took the second bowl and they both slurped their bone broth happily. Elly explained, the marrow in the bone has a lot of nutrients. Nutrients? Things that are good for you. Florence nodded and slurped with a smile. My lady knows so much more than before. I think the fall in the pond must have made you remember all these things. Elly didn't like lying to Florence, but she didn't have a choice. Florence would never have understood that Elly was from the future, so she continued to put up a facade. Elly took another sip of her bone broth. I wish we had our own personal cook and kitchen. Wouldn't that be something? Florence lit up. But you did. Don't you remember? Elly racked through her memories. What happened to the cook? Stewardess Maggie got rid of him. She said you had no more money to pay him. This struck Elly as odd. She knew that all royalty got a little bit of money from the king for their upkeep, for example, to pay for their servants, cooks, clothes, food, and travel. Why didn't Princess Eleanor have any money? If she did, she would have had a personal chef and her own kitchen. What happened to all my money from His Grace, the king? Don't you remember? You used it all up. Elly was so tired, and these were the other princess's memories. Remind me again, how did I use it up? My lady was given quite a bit of money from the king upon your wedding to the prince. The servants never liked you, however. The prince advised that if you spend more money on them, they would like you more, so that's what you did. And then? Did they like me more? They did, but then the prince replaced them all. Elly's fists clenched. That can't have been all the money. What happened to the rest? The prince asked you for more several times to throw lavish parties in your name. Elly gritted her teeth, already knowing where this was going. Let me guess. He didn't invite you to them. Elly realized the body's previous owner had been quite a pushover. She had been shy, weak, and unable to stand up for herself. Elly felt bad for her. She had suffered quite a lot, but no longer. Now that Elly was in charge, she was going to be sure to regain her power. Right now, she just needed to wait for a chance to do so. Elly slept and rested for 3 days. On the third day, she was finally feeling well enough to move around. She decided to walk down the corridor to get some exercise. The cool tiles felt good under Elly's feet. She was walking slowly but surely. That's when she heard voices around the corner. Elly moved closer, trying to hear what the people were saying. You don't understand. You have to help me. I will do what I can, Sir Lawrence. Elly ducked to hide. Please, Stewardess Maggie. My brother is going to die.